All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We got recurring guests. We got Philadelphia sports media personality Marc Farzetta. Marc, I haven't heard anybody spell Eagles Eagles in almost 6 months. What's going on?
Well, you got to give us a reason to spell Eagles, obviously, here in the town of Philadelphia. And although apathy will never, ever in a million years set in with Philadelphia Eagles fans, there has certainly come a point where they just throw their hands up in the air and almost become despondent.
Yeah.
Me, as even an Eagles fan, as a guy who roots for this team to win every Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Thursday, depending on what year you're watching football these days, I am certainly somebody who will look at this team. I want them to win, but they are certainly making that difficult right now. Again, no apathy, but certainly despondency amongst the Philadelphia Eagles fan base. And right now, it's more or less trying to guess whether or not your next starting quarterback is going to be the new era of starting quarterback here in Philadelphia, with Jalen Hurts going from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts, or whether or not it's just going to be a flash in the pan of Jalen Hurts before they go back to Carson Wentz. The Eagles have left a lot to be desired, and really their attempt to correct things has taken way too long for Philadelphia Eagles fans to really get excited about.
What do you think? This is what I've broken down, what the possibilities of what's going on with Carson Wentz. One is he broke his back a couple of years ago, and they were just like, oh, he'll be fine in 2 months. Doesn't really work like that. Two, the injuries have really, of all the players, have caught up to him, and it's hard to make Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward look like stars. Or three, seeing Nick Foles win the Super Bowl, and instead of that inspiring him, made him like want to get that, and not happening is throwing him off. What do you think it is?
I think it's a lot of stuff, but I mean, let's point the finger at the number one, and that's Carson Wentz. And when we've talked in Philadelphia about what Carson Wentz has done as a quarterback, everyone says, what about the offensive line? What about coaching? What about receivers and all that? Well, last year when they went on a nice little 4-game winning streak to end the season, he didn't have anybody around him either. And he was one of the first quarterbacks ever to put up numbers the way he put up numbers at the end of last year without having maybe even a 500-plus yard receiver catching balls for him. So that's a huge difference. And you go to this year, and it's a lot of the same thing. Not a big name wide receiver out there for him. Deshaun Jackson obviously has barely played since he re-signed with the Eagles. Zach Ertz has been hurt, only recently came back. Dallas Goedert was hurt, only recently came back. Your offensive line has gone through 10 different variations yet again. All this is stuff that you could say almost exactly last year. The biggest difference has been the way Carson Wentz has played. When he's inside the pocket and had time, he's one of the least effective quarterbacks still in the NFL. So that's a Carson Wentz problem. If Carson Wentz was some great, phenomenal quarterback, or even a shadow of what he was in 2017, or even the end of last year, he would find a way to correct a lot of these mistakes, or at least be that deodorant to everything that smells on this Eagles roster or in this Eagles coaching staff. This year, it hasn't been there. And he's the one person that you could actually change in season to try to get some kind of return on the investment of that change. So you're not going to fire Doug Peterson right now. You weren't going to fire Jim Schwartz because his defense has actually played okay. But the one person that was at all vulnerable was the quarterback. But if you ask me, the Eagles could have done something to maybe right this ship a lot earlier. Sure, Carson's been a major problem here. And there's been other major problems. But if the Eagles would have been able to bench Carson Wentz, maybe in the last 5 minutes of the game against the Browns, where they were down 2 scores, albeit I think it was 9 points. If they're down 2 scores and there are 5 minutes left and they have 2 timeouts, that's enough. That's close enough of a game to still send a message to your starter, Carson Wentz, like, hey, you better get your act together. Enough to send a message, but also enough to get away as a head coach after the game and as an organization to say, oh, well, it was the end of the game and, we were down 2 scores, so we just figured it was time to get Jalen out there. Carson been hit a ton. It was rainy weather. You had every built-in excuse in the book to kind of mask a benching, just to help Carson Wentz in the maturation process even further. Instead, they didn't bench him against the Cleveland Browns. Instead, they didn't bench him in the following game. They benched him in the game against the Green Bay Packers. And to me, they didn't bench him against Seattle. That's the other team they played. You had an opportunity to try to shake things up there and see how Carson would respond. Instead, they wait to the last minute. They wait till a team like the Giants start to catch fire. They wait for another team like Washington to come up with a huge win, probably their biggest win of the season. And now they're until their biggest win of the season against the Steelers. They wait to this point in the season when it's far too late to try to get anything else out of Carson. For me, I would have started this process a long time ago. I would have started it with a pull of Carson Wentz towards the end of a game, like Cleveland, like Seattle, certainly maybe the second half against Green Bay, but even that's late. And then you put Carson back in as the starter to see how he responds. Instead of doing that, they're now putting Jalen Hurts in another very difficult situation, not going into Green Bay to be a starter, but instead taking on the Saints and the best pass defense in the NFL. Hey, go get him, rookie. It doesn't make sense the way the Eagles have handled this in the least bit. From drafting Jalen Hurts first and foremost when they had a supposed franchise quarterback to having him start now against the Saints.
Because I think the two biggest storylines for the draft were the Packers taking Jordan Love and the Eagles taking Jalen Hurts. Do you think what's going on in Philly is the exact opposite of what's been sparking Aaron Rodgers this year?
Pretty much. And I think when Aaron Rodgers was whispering sweet nothings into Carson Wentz's ear, I think some of that same stuff came up. But Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl MVP and obviously a Super Bowl ring to go along with whatever he says. Carson Wentz had a seat on the bench when his team and his team's quarterback won the Super Bowl and the MVP award. So Aaron Rodgers would have a little bit different swagger as far as that goes. Plus, Aaron Rodgers also came in for a legend like Brett Favre when he started his career. So Aaron Rodgers has a much different perspective than Carson Wentz, and I'm sure he gave him every vote of confidence in the world. But when you really try to look at it from a bird's eye view, no pun intended, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, you have to think of it as, okay, if I'm Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers can go through that, that's something that I can aspire to be. Knowing that he had to go through some adversity, I have to go through as Carson Wentz a bunch of adversity to try to get back on the starting field. And again, gain that confidence again. I have to go through everything I possibly can to make sure I can get back to that starter status. And maybe this is the reset button that Carson Wentz needs in his career. Maybe he won't get a chance to respond this year. Maybe he'll get a chance. Maybe he'll get a chance to respond next year in training camp. But this might be that reset button that he knows to say, you know what? It's not about Nick Foles anymore. It's not even about this team winning a Super Bowl. It's about me coming back as the best option to play quarterback for this franchise going forward to get him back to that Super Bowl status. It's about me beating out Jalen Hurts, validating my contract, and winning as much as humanly possible here in Philadelphia.
Are you concerned with Miles Sanders?
I'm not concerned with Miles Sanders as much as I'm concerned with how Doug Peterson and how Deuce Staley are using Miles Sanders. Passing game, definitely concerned with Miles Sanders. But when he's a running back that I think has one game in his career, and he's been the best offensive weapon on this team for 2 years, he's the best offensive weapon. He's never had more than 20 carries in a game. That's ridiculous. The only person you can really blame is the coaching staff there to not get him the ball as a running back more in those situations. You want to talk about drop passes against the Packers, drop passes against the Giants, when he's open in the flat room to run, that's on Jalen Hurts. You got to catch the football. But when it comes to running the football, which is what makes him so special, that's all play calling. That's all coaching. You have to commit to the run early, and you have to keep going to it. You can't do what we screamed about for a decade, almost a decade and a half with Andy Reid, which was, oh, look, the run was stopped twice. Guess I can't do that anymore. No, you got to commit to it to make sure you're using that talented player in the best possible way. Coaches say it all the time. I got to do a better job of putting these players in a better position to be successful. Yeah, how about actually doing it? I mean, it sounds nice, but actually doing it is even better.
What do you think they should do with Zach Ertz?
Zach Ertz, unfortunately, I think is going to walk. I don't think they're going to come to a long-term deal. I think there's going to be a holdout. I think there's going to be a trade. I think it's going to be something along the lines of this will be his last year in Philadelphia. And talking to some of the people that are far more familiar with the situation than I am, they all seem to think the same thing. It's the type of thing that if you could snap your fingers, no salary cap, unlimited money, of course Zach Ertz would be back here, no problem. They love him. I mean, this guy broke ribs. This guy peed blood, for this organization. You want that guy back, and he's you're one of your all-time leading receivers and also single-season receiving record for the Eagles, and one of Carson's favorite people on the planet. So you'd want to keep that together, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to pay everybody. It seems like it's going to maybe come down to one or the other if they decide to take a huge hit with trading Carson Wentz or they decide to take a huge hit in paying Zach Ertz. Put it this way. I think of the two, Zach Ertz is the one that's not going to be back next season for the Eagles.
Do you think they're regretting not having Malcolm Jenkins in the locker room?
I know one person's to answer the question, yes, they absolutely are. But I know one person in particular really misses him, and that would be Jim Schwartz. And Jim Schwartz basically did a soliloquy or a Shakespearean sonnet even, how about that for a reference, to Malcolm Jenkins during his press conference.
I haven't heard the word sonnet in 7 years. That's the first time I've heard the word sonnet in 7 years.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, man, all the bases, brother. All the bases.
Yeah.
But Jim Schwartz came out the other day and was just singing the praises, as you would imagine, of Malcolm Jenkins, what he was as a leader in the locker room, what he did on the football field, what he did on the football field as a leader on the field itself, everything, and just how good a player he was. I mean, it's not like he was, at that point in his career, better than Brian Dawkins was at that point in his career, but still as valuable to each of their own defenses when they left Philadelphia. So although I didn't want to see Malcolm Jenkins go, I understand the move. However, when you move to a guy like Quentin Demps, like you did from Brian Dawkins, or you move to a guy like Macho Harris, like you did from Brian Dawkins, you can't move to Jalen Mills as your free safety filling in.
He did beat up Devin Robinson. So put that in. He beat up Devin Robinson, who's, I don't know if he's still on the go-go, but
right.
Size, strength, that's a win in my book. Give him a couple snaps. But when that happened, and I'm like, wait a minute. Devin Robinson fought Jalen Mills in DC, and Devin Robinson ended up in the hospital. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're not off the team because you fought. You're off the team because you lost. Come on, man.
Yeah, no, it's no excuses. No excuses.
But what have they seen from him? Because at corner, he got killed all the time. Every time for the past 2 years when he was at corner in fantasy football, I would start whoever he was guarding. And then they're like, no, we got to move him to safety. I'm like, no, move him out of the lineup.
Well, the idea there was to either give him enough cushion so that he couldn't get burned on those famous double moves that everyone's talked about, but also use him where he was a little bit better, which was kind of where Malcolm Jenkins was good at the line of scrimmage. The only thing is when you're at the line of scrimmage, you're relying a lot on instinct. And that instinct just wasn't there anymore for Jalen Mills. Even though he played safety at LSU and he was a good safety and all that, the instincts had far left him by the time he got to the NFL level as a safety, and for good reason, because he was playing corner. And there was a reason he was playing corner, because he was a physical corner. He was a slightly faster, slightly quicker, just as physical Russell Douglas type of player. That's the only reason he was elevated to be even a starter in that secondary. But to move him to say, hey, it shows great commitment. Shows great commitment.
It's like turf. It's like, hey, this is what we want the turf to look like. Just go look
exactly. But it hasn't worked out for Jalen Mills. And I love the way he competes. And I know a lot of people make fun of him for the flexing and the finger wag, even though he's gotten beat on a play. There's one particular play that I think back to on this season that kind of summed up Jalen Mills. And that play was against the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe T. Higgins was lined up against him. And he had a play in the end zone where not only did he not turn around to try to make a play on the ball or intercept the ball, on a ball that was far underthrown, and quite frankly, I didn't think it warranted a flag. But instead of even deflecting the ball, which would have negated pass interference, picking the ball off in the end zone, which would have taken 7 points away from the Bengals, in which they later got on the same possession, he interfered with, I believe it was T. Higgins on the play, and drew the pass interference call. So then it just set up another touchdown opportunity for the Bengals, which they cashed in on. You had an opportunity to change the whole tide of the game. I believe it was in the first quarter. And he didn't have the wherewithal, the awareness, to use a Madden rating term. He didn't have the awareness on that play, awareness rating 12, to just turn around and try to make a play on the ball when it was obvious the receiver was trying to go up and make a catch. As a cornerback, as a defensive back, safety, whatever, you got to know that if you see that receiver start to go up, you got to go up with them, turn around, because you know the ball's coming. He did neither. Pass interference, 7 points later for the Bengals.
What do you think of the play of Slay this year? Do you think you happy with
leaking oil?
Yeah.
As of late, the last 2 games, and a lot of credit to him.
I think he was hurt in the last game, wasn't it?
He was a little banged up, and he apologized after the game against Cincinnati. Here's what I will say, and this is where I separate the fan, Marc Farzetta, and the media, Marc Farzetta, right? The fan wants to say, what the hell are you doing? Make a play. But if you're being real, Russell Wilson, pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
Those guys made perfect throws. Devontae Adams, pretty good wide receiver. DK Metcalf, pretty good wide receiver. Those guys are going to make plays. And Darius Slay has done a phenomenal job for the entire season, except for those 2 games. And I'm hoping it turns around. It's going to be tough against the Saints, regardless of who's at quarterback, because they have wide receivers that can make plays. But this will be a game that I think you see him come back from and really show why he can be a top-notch corner in the NFL.
What % chance do you think the Eagles have of beating New Orleans?
Wow. I would give the Philadelphia Eagles.
What's the spread? I'm actually very curious.
I believe it's 6.5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that's the last I could be confusing it with another game.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I
had a perfect parlay last week, but I lost in the first game, and the whole thing dissolved. I was like watching the Saints-Falcons game. I'm like, get to 46. I'm like, it's not getting to 46. Yeah, I was so confident. It was like 10 to win 120. I'm like, this is going to be perfect. And then I was like, no, it's done. It's done.
Do you have it?
I have, let's see, Saints, Eagles, 7 in Philly. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it went up a little bit from what I saw, but I give them about a 15% chance of winning. I mean, let's face it. The Eagles are a bad football team. They're not a well-coached football team. Jalen Hurts, if it was anything special, he would have been in prior to just getting thrown in on the road in Green Bay. He would have been playing against the Browns. He probably would have been playing before that. There probably would have been a bigger argument to get him into the game by the coaching staff instead of trying to exhaust almost every resource with Carson Wentz. I believe that if he was anything really special, they would have got him in before. And overall, let's put it this way. As I get older, I tend to realize how coaching is important, how much coaching is really important. And I go to examples like a guy like Wade Phillips being matched up against Cam Newton in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Yep. And, man, they had Cam Newton's head spinning in that Super Bowl because he just knew how to outcoach him. Yep. Sean Payton, I think, knows how to outcoach Jim Schwartz and certainly knows how to outcoach Doug Peterson, unfortunately.
Do you think there's any chance they move Wentz, or do you think the contract's too big?
I don't think they move him. It's going to come down to how Jalen Hurts does play in these last few games. I see him playing well. I don't see him being like, wow, this is the next franchise guy. I don't think he'll do anything like that. I don't think he'll be like Bobby Hoying, where he threw 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions or whatever it was, and lit the world on fire by the standards in the late 90s, or mid 90s. But I think he'll put up some numbers that'll be eye popping. And one of the things that'll be the most eye popping is the style of play. Because if you look at even the way certain, like Aaron Rodgers plays, or a guy like Patrick Mahomes plays, or even Lamar Jackson to a degree, and you see Russell Wilson, another one, you watch the way these guys play, the modern quarterback. Do you see Carson Wentz doing that, or do you see Jalen Hurts doing that? Jalen Hurts would have, I'm not saying he's on that level by any means. I'm only talking about the style of play. Jalen Hurts, you saw it in his great rollout touchdown pass to Greg Ward in the end zone. Yep. You saw it in his pinpoint accuracy, dropping the ball in perfectly to Jalen Reagor. You see him being able to buy more time behind the pocket. And even his pocket awareness for his first substantial time playing, 24 snaps, I believe it was, 26 snaps against the Packers. You saw him have good pocket awareness. And of all the things, the pocket awareness with Carson Wentz has left him quicker than almost anybody I've ever witnessed. From having a great feel of being able to spin away from pressure to then having zero feel and then just taking those hits that he doesn't need to take, or holding on to the football when he has 3 seconds to throw it and letting it go late and still taking a hit. That's been the most amazing thing to me, is watching Carson Wentz go through that process and not have that awareness anymore. And then you see a guy like Jalen Hurts come in and he goes off instinct. And it's been great to watch that, or it was great to watch it against the Packers, and hopefully we'll get to watch it again against the Saints.
What percent chance do they move on from Wentz, move on from Peterson, and then hire Lincoln Riley to make Jalen Hurts the guy for the next 10 years?
Hire who? I'm sorry?
Lincoln Riley.
Oh, Lincoln Riley. I don't think they go that direction. I don't think they would invest. I don't think Jalen Hurts. Yeah, it could be. It would be. Wow, people's heads would be spinning in Philadelphia, but I don't think they go that far deep with it. I really see the guy that they have their eye on, and I know people will hate this for one reason and one reason alone, but I don't think it's enough to ignore it. Eric Bieniemy is a guy that a lot of people have been high on, assistant coach with the Chiefs, same coaching tree, same philosophy and all that. Another guy is Mike Kafka, same coaching tree, same philosophy, but a lot of people have high on it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Eagles former third-string quarterback.
As a coordinator?
As a coordinator and as a head coach, he's been getting a lot of attention as well. So those are a couple of names.
They're both the Chiefs, aren't they?
They're both the Chiefs. Yeah. So I think Jeffrey Lurie wants to make sure that he's feeling as if he still owns the team. Yeah. And that was Chip Kelly. Of all Chip Kelly's mistakes, his number one mistake was making the owner feel like he didn't own squat. Yeah. Doug Peterson, Eric Bieniemy, Mike Kafka, all from the same coaching tree, as I mentioned, but it's a coaching tree that I think you have a built-in respect for Jeffrey Lurie, which I know he appreciates above all else.
What if you bring in like Kevin Cobb as QB coach, bring in Kevin Curtis, have double Kevin's. What's Kevin Curtis up to nowadays?
Kevin Curtis, you know what? I got no idea.
I can't find him anywhere. He's like off the map. He's like,
well, I'll tell you this much. I remember Kevin Cobb years ago talking about how he wanted to be a head coach. He wanted to, get into coaching at some point. I don't know if that's still the case.
Feel wild. Yeah. Be like, all right, Doug Peterson's done. We'd like to announce the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Kevin Cobb, make some noise, and people are like,
yeah, maybe Kevin Cobb, maybe Corey Detmer, maybe Ty Detmer, maybe Donovan McNabb, maybe all
Randall
of them.
Cunningham. He can teach Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
Jaws, get Jaws.
Yeah.
Jaws would be interesting.
He's around. He's around.
Yeah, he'll do it. So I want to flip over to basketball's NBA season starting really soon, which is bizarre. Sixers made some moves, moved on. They got Daryl Morey, analytics guru, and they moved Al Horford, which I didn't think was possible.
Amazing.
How do you see the season going?
I think the 76ers are going to win at least 54 games. So I'm pretty optimistic about what they could be doing. 54, something like that. Basically, you got what you needed with bringing in a guy like Danny Green. You got what you needed in bringing in a guy like Seth Curry. This team needed shooters. And Doc Rivers, of course, being the guy to head up everything. I got a lot more confidence in Doc Rivers than I do. I mean, again, we were just talking about coaching in the NFL. Yeah. Same thing in the NBA. Doc Rivers will be able to figure out this spacing. Doc Rivers, Sam Cassell already working with Ben Simmons as a shooter. These are the things that needed to happen. I mean, you can talk about a reset button with Carson Wentz. How about a reset button with the Sixers? Yeah. They've basically had their kindergarten teacher in Brett Brown. They had somebody to buddy him. They had someone to talk him up and talk about all the support. Well, guess what, kids? Now you're in first grade. Now it's the real deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what a guy like Legos at 3:30.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. No more nap time, kids. So I'm just really excited about what the Sixers will do this season, because basically what they did on the court, and then also what they did with Doc Rivers. And if you had to say whether or not they're going to make a trade at the trade deadline during the season to get them over the hump, I think Daryl Morey is a pretty good guy to have in that spot to make that correct deal. And let's not forget about this. Just talking about the non-players, talking about the triumvirate of Doc Rivers, what a 16-year player, 20-year coach. Yep. Daryl Morey, 13 years in Houston, and before that with Boston. And then you also have Elton Brand, who's a 15, 20-year player as well, and now in the front office.
Pick.
That's exactly. And that's a pretty good triumvirate. That's a pretty good meeting of the minds to have running a basketball organization. Yeah. And then you put that with young talent like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, and then what Matisse Thybulle can be, and hopefully you get from Tobias Harris what you got when he was with the LA Clippers under Doc Rivers. It's going to be a pretty good basketball team. And look, for all you could say about Brett Brown, with this roster, he was going to get 50 wins again. That's something the Sixers as an organization hadn't done in back-to-back seasons since the 80s. Think about that. And he was doing it with the talent that was already on this roster. Yeah. Think about taking that to the next step. But all of this, more than anything, depends on two people, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Everything else is nice. Everything else is better than just window dressing. I'm not trying to downplay it. But Joel Embiid's health, his conditioning matters almost more than I want to ask you about
that, the conditioning. I went to a Wizards Sixers game a couple of years ago, and I will never forget this. We got there. It was in DC. It was about 20 minutes before tip, and Joel Embiid was on the court stretching out with a hamburger in his mouth. I feel like Doc Rivers doesn't approve of that.
Yeah, so I always appreciated when Joel Embiid be eating at least grapes, like a full thing of grapes. Like that was always a cool thing. And then the burger was like, the ball's on you, man. God bless you. But it was weird. It was weird. It was definitely different. But yeah, I don't think Doc Rivers is going to be allowing that, and I don't think that he'll also be allowing Ben Simmons to not shoot during a game. That's kind of where I was going with the Ben Simmons thing. But of those two things and the conditioning for Joe, I think that I would almost call it hunger, and that would be the worst usage right now. But the desire to win, I think, is very much there. But I'm at a point with Joel of everything you say is adorable, everything you say is entertaining, show me on the court. Almost like going back to the kindergarten analogy, and you apologize, don't tell me, show me. Same thing with Joel Embiid, and same thing with Ben Simmons. I don't want to see the Instagram videos of you shooting jump shots. I don't want to see all that stuff, whatever. You're putting in the work, good for you, congratulations. You should be a professional athlete. But what I want to see is that actually come to fruition in the game. If you're going to be spotting up from three in the corner, great. If you're going to be driving and pulling up for a mid-range jumper, phenomenal. Because ultimately, and this is one of the best things that got said throughout the offseason from Doc Rivers, Ben needs to make sure people are guarding him when he doesn't have the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
That's one of the most important things you're going to hear this offseason before they start playing. Ben needs to not have the ball in his hands for somebody to guard him. That's a great thing. If he does have the ball in his hands, someone can't be sagging off him, because you're going to want to make sure you have that spacing. So if Ben can do that, then it's going to open up a whole different world for Joel Embiid, for Dwight Howard coming off the bench. Also, spacing.
Who's watching his snakes? He's got 30 snakes. Who's watching them in Philly? Is there like a Indeed ad right now? We're looking for a babysitter. Dwight's Cobras need somebody to watch them on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday nights.
Not me. I'll tell you this
All
much.
right.
Not me. I will not be. I am not. No, I don't know.
I want to know who's watching them in Orlando because he was there for months, and I can't imagine anybody in LA during the heat of the pandemic was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go hang out with Dwight Snakes." No, that's not happening.
No, I don't. Were you an Indiana Jones kid, or was that a little bit too much before your time?
A little bit before my time. I know who he is though.
Yeah, no, he hated snakes, and because of Indiana Jones, I hate snakes. It's the one thing, man. It's the one thing that skees me the hell out. Spiders, anything else, I don't care. Shark, hell, I don't care. But as snakes, forget it. Anything that moves around without feet like that, forget about it. No thanks.
Yeah. No, when there's one and I can keep an eye on it, it's fine. When there's 30 and I count 28, I'm out of there. And then so there's a lot of rumors about Daryl Morey trying to bring Harden there. I'm gonna give you a hypothetical and tell me what you think of it. Let's say midway through the season, Simmons still isn't shooting. They can't do it. Their tempers are flaring. They move Simmons and get rid of the Harris contract and bring in James Harden. What do you think?
Yeah, let's party. Yeah, I love that. I mean, here's the thing. I know a lot of people just say no right out of the gate because, the defense Ben Simmons plays. Yeah, it's great. Is he ever going to be an MVP? Is he ever going to be a serious contender without that offensive part of his game? And the answer to that question is no, absolutely not. So if you go through this season, and I'm all for starting the season with Ben, with Joe, trying to make it work. And if that is an epic fail by Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey, and the talent they surrounded them with, which I'm not predicting it will be, but if it is, then you have to move on. You owe it to yourself as a franchise. You owe it to the fan base to go through the years that we've gone through here in Philadelphia, watching the process and suffering through all that and going at, think about this for a second. You have not gotten past the point in which you started the process. The process started shortly after you
was
lost.
an Uncut Gems. It was an Uncut Gems. I remember that game.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I remember that series very clearly. LaVoy Allen killed the Celtics. I don't know why. I wonder what he's doing. But so do you think Harden just what do you think he does to that team? Because they haven't.
I think he scores. I think he could work a great
Harden shoot the ball? Really? What?
I think he could work a great two-man game with Joel Embiid, and I think that would be awesome to watch. I mean, people want to talk about James Harden like he sucks, and that's it's just no. He's just not what you're used to. He's a guy that's already established in the NBA. He's not a guy you're like, man, I wonder if he'll progress. No, he's great already. Yeah. You can live with that, and not only can you live with that, you can thrive with that. You're going to have guys on this team that are going to play defense. You're going to have guys that are going to score in the paint. James Harden will do everything else for you. If I know I'm going to get 33, you're talking, he's not just a great scorer by today's standards. He's one of the greatest scorers ever in the NBA. So it's not like you're just trading him for some guy that you might have a good year or two with. You could get 3, 4, 5 years still out of this guy. I mean, Kobe Bryant was still scoring points at 37 years old. You could still get a guy like James Harden, 31, 32 years old, who can come in here and put up points for at least another 5 years while Joel Embiid is getting better in that time as well. Yeah. So look, some people are acting like James Harden is some, franchise killer. Hey, let him kill us. I'd love to see him come in here and try to handle business here in Philadelphia, but not until I see what you can get from Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, Danny Green, Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, all these guys under Daryl Morey, under Elton Brand, and obviously under Doc Rivers as well.
Because Harden's going to take 23 seconds off the shot clock just to do his little spin move. Yeah, you can get Embiid to box out. I don't know who's getting a rebound over him.
No, nobody. And put it this way. You could have Joel Embiid and Dwight Howard on the floor at the same time at certain points in the game with James Harden jacking up those threes.
Yeah, you get him out there. You get Thibault. He can do his videos still. I hope he doesn't have Dwight in the videos. But they got shooters now. You got an actual coach. I do like the pick they got that I don't think really hasn't got. I don't know if it's gotten much fanfare there. Maxey from Kentucky.
He yeah.
He reminded me a little bit of Lou Williams, just kind of off the ball bench scorer.
They're high on what his ability will be, as you would assume for a first round pick. That's 21st overall, 20th overall. Very very slick, very quick, great shooting motion, brings a lot to the table, and I know they're excited about the energy that he'll be able to bring off the bench.
Do you see Simmons moving more likely than Embiid?
Yes, I do, because I think a lot of people will look at Joel Embiid as a guy that might not have that much longer left in the NBA. I think they look at a guy like Ben Simmons and say, oh, man, you might be able to get a decade out of this guy. Yeah. I think they look at Joel Embiid and they say maybe 4 more really good years, maybe 5 more really good years. And I think there's a lot of question marks surrounding the attitude that some people, because you don't want to make a big trade for a guy that you don't think is all the way in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ben is the guy that would bring more back in it, or the guy that would be more likely to be traded.
And I got just one last question for you. So Eagles are most likely going to have a top 5 pick this year. What do you want them to do with it?
I think what they have to do with it is, obviously you go to best available and all that. I'd love to see them solidify the wide receiver position. But it's funny when you talk about that top 5 pick, who's going to be picking it is the famous response to it. And I don't trust this regime right now, even though you could say it's dummy proof, making that top 5 pick. So whether or not they get the names escaping me right now out of Penn State. Yes.
Or Micah Parsons.
Yeah, Parsons out of Penn State. It's like you look at guys like that and you think, yeah, that's great. But again, what coaching staff is coming in? Like when you talk about DK Metcalf, you talk about Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Would they do that here? Would they do that under this coaching staff?
Can you imagine having both of them? Can you imagine having both of them there? I was asking my roommate's an Eagles fan the other day. I asked him, I said, can you imagine if the starting receivers were Greg Ward, DK Metcalf, and Justin Jefferson, and you had Ertz and Miles Sanders? That'd be insane.
Yeah, but again, with the coaching staff, with the play calling, with the way the quarterbacks played, with the offensive line, like I love all those guys. And DK Metcalf, I'll say I was late to the party on that.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, I was the guy just like smacking my desk saying, hold on, he's there, take him, he's there, take him. Ruggs, who hasn't done much of anything until recently with the Raiders. And then obviously you had CeeDee Lamb, you had Jerry Jeudy, and then you had Justin Jefferson sitting right there, just as beautiful as ever, right there for the taking. Yeah. And as per usual, they made the wrong decision.
Unbelievable. So you're all completely off on Arcega-Whiteside. When you did that with your tongue, I kind of like downgrade the receiver a little bit.
Yeah, as someone who is a sucker for culture, I will buy into that, but I just won't buy into him as a wide receiver in the NFL. He just, people say, oh, he went to Stanford. He has to know the playbook. Yeah, no, that's not the case. I don't think he knows the playbook, and I don't think he knows how to use his physical abilities on the football field either.